Jamie, how would you think England will do in Qatar?
I think in the last two tournaments, England have over-exceeded expectations, and I think it'd be difficult to do it this time because we must say, for how well England did, they got favourable draws, the way it felt for them. And I think England would need that again because we know there's a good chance that they could play Senegal or Holland in the last 16, could face France in the quarterfinals, and I think it'd be really difficult to certainly come through the quarterfinals if it was France there. But as I said, as we know from previous tournaments, you don't know what's going to happen in other groups and how it's going to fall for you. So I think if it falls the way we expect it to, I think England will get to the quarterfinals and then probably bow out.
Do you think because they've done quite well in the last two tournaments, there's more pressure on England this time?
Yeah, I think there is more expectancy in that. We've gone so close. The only thing left for us to do now is win a tournament, and I think our best opportunity was obviously, a home, almost a home tournament, playing a lot of games at Wembley, a final at Wembley, going 1-0 up, and then to go and play a World Cup. But don't forget the World Cup, you've now got Argentina and Brazil in there, who are two of the big favourites. So I think it makes it a lot more difficult. And I think if England were to go out to the quarterfinals, I don't think there should be too much criticism.
Right.
I still think that would be a decent fist of it.
Big debate about England's defensive options and whether they should play 3 at the back or 4 at the back. How do you feel they should line up?
Well, certainly in the first game against Iran, I think they should play a back 4.
Right.
They should go with the extra attacking player considering the opposition. But I think one of the strengths of Gareth Southgate's management is he's never been afraid to change a system or personnel. And up until now, it's been very successful when he's changed it. Going through the Euros, he went with a back 3 in the World Cup. But I think if you go back to the Euros, he played a back 3, I think, twice.
Yes,
and it was in
that's right.
Big games. So
he
one of those was
quite a lot, yeah.
One of those was the final against Italy. You can say we lost the game, but we made a great start to that game. I think Germany may have been the other one. And I think if we came up against top opposition in the knockout stage, I think he would then go back to a 3. So I have no problem with him doing that. I think it's proved successful in the past. I think he's changed over the last sort of 5 or 6 years as a manager, and I actually think that's a strength, not a weakness.
In terms of personnel, though, who would you like to see in that defence? Obviously, big debates going on about right back and Harry Maguire's form and so on. What do you think he should go for?
I think it's very difficult now. We seem to have an abundance of players who could play right back or right wing back. I think Reece James is a big blow.
Yeah,
I really do, because I think I would have gone for him.
Okay.
At right back or right wing back. I think if you're playing a back 3, Kyle Walker would have came into the equation there at right centre back, and I can understand why he's not a centre back, but he gives you absolutely blistering pace. Harry Maguire also has problems.
Would you play him?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think you'd have to see how he was doing for Manchester United. Does he get enough games in before the tournament? We've seen the effect of not playing football and what that had on him in the Nations League games, and I just think the whole hysteria and focus around Harry Maguire might almost be too much for him. Yeah. And understandably so. He's under a lot of pressure and criticism.
So who are you putting in there instead of Harry Maguire?
I think John Stones.
Right.
I think as long as he just gets a few games at Manchester City, because he's had injury problems, but even he's playing right back at times for Man City. But I'd have John Stones in there. I'd probably look at Eric Dyer to come into the equation, but that's not set in stone. Yeah. It'd almost be, how it falls at the time. There's still a few weeks to go. But I think Eric Dyer at this moment, I'm impressed with him. I'm impressed with Conor Cody at Everton, but I think he's probably a little bit too similar to John Stones in terms of physique and, playing out from the back. So I'd go for John Stones. So if it was a back 4, I'd go for John Stones and Eric Dyer as my 2 centre-backs. If it was a back 3, I probably would still maybe go for Harry Maguire on that left side, because he's done that before for England, stepping out with the ball.
Lots of journalists and fans get very hung up about formations and, he doesn't know his best team. Do you think that's something that we worry about more outside of that than the players themselves? Because I was talking to somebody at the England camp and they're saying the players are much more adaptable than you think they are. Do you think nowadays in particular the players are much more in tune in terms of playing different formations and so on? Yeah,
I don't think formations is as important as it was in the past. It's not set in stone. When you look at a team, a lot of the top teams, certainly when you watch Premier League football now, Champions League football, they actually play 2 different systems within a game. Yeah. They play one system with the ball and one defensively. So it's completely different when they're building up from the back. Even on paper, it might say they're a back 4, but one of the full-backs will push really high. Yes. And they'll be playing out with a back 3. Yeah. And when they defend, even Pep Guardiola, we always think in our mind of players popping up in funny positions in midfield, but when they defend 4-4-2. Kevin De Bruyne goes and joins the other striker. Yeah. And they defend very, rigidly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in formations. I analyse football and formations a lot, and I am interested in it, but I don't think we should get hung up so much on, you know, whether it's a back three or a back four, because whether you're with the ball or without it, it'll be completely different formations anyway.
Gareth gets a lot of criticism, people saying, oh, he has the handbrake on, he doesn't unleash England's attacking talent. Where do you sit with all of that?
I don't agree with that, because I think the way he's gone about it, it's proven very successful. And I also think World Cup and international football is completely different to Premier League and Champions League football, where I do feel the onus is being on the front foot, being proactive, not reactive. I think it might be different in a World Cup, or certainly history tells you that, where pragmatism over a month or 5 or 6 games normally wins, and teams with really strong defensive records in tournament football normally come out the other side. And I think England have proven that as well in the 2 tournaments that they've played under Gareth Southgate.
What do you think of the criticism he's faced, though? I mean, a lot of people almost seem to want him out now. It seems to have reached that point.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's bizarre. I think it's almost a boredom factor. I think you see that sometimes with club managers where they've done really well, and as soon as it starts going the other way, it get them out, and they forget how bad it was before he came in. And I think it's just sometimes people want something new, something different to talk about, you know. And I do feel like it's getting like that with Gareth Southgate, and that's why I think if I was in Gareth Southgate's position, I would be thinking of getting out after the World Cup.
Really?
I would, yeah. I mean, I know his contract goes longer. You've been up here, semi-final, final Euros. And even if it just comes here, it's still a really good performance from England. But the longer you stay, if it goes low and then it is a really bad job towards the end of it. If it was me, I could almost see the tide turning now with the media, with supporters of how they see England. And if England get knocked out in the last 16 or the quarter-final, that pressure and criticism is going to really ramp up. And I don't think he needs that on the back of what he's already done as England manager.
Obviously, you've played at 2 World Cups. Can you give us an insight as to what that's like in terms of being around the camp, day-to-day, the boredom factor or the excitement? I mean, what were first of all, 2006, what was that like as a tournament to play at?
Well, I enjoyed it. You know, I love football. I love the fact of being away with England and watching all the games. You know, I'm still a football fan.
So were you one of those players who sat in the lobby or sat in the TV room and... Right, okay.
Yeah, I didn't miss a game. There wasn't many players like that, I must say.
No, I was going to say you're probably sitting on your own quite a lot.
Yeah, there's probably 3 or 4 players out of a squad of 23, you know, watching consistently the games. A lot of the players would come and watch the big games of an evening, of course, but I used to watch all the games. I used to like being away, cocooned in a hotel, peace, quiet, you know, in your own world. Concentrate on the football. You know, as players, when we're at home, you're getting pulled all over the place at different times, and it was nice to be, you know, just there, train of a morning, watching football. For me, I loved it. I know that was completely different to how a lot of players saw it, and I understand a lot of players are different, but for me, I loved being away at a World Cup, you know, and watching games and training and being involved in the game. So I actually enjoyed the 2 trips to Germany and South Africa, and probably enjoyed South Africa more because I was older. I could deal with the whole days of not having things to fill your day. I think as a younger player, you find that more difficult in tournaments than an experienced player.
How did they compare, Baden-Baden and Rustenburg?
I didn't find them too different, if I'm being honest. I think
because the perception was they were very different.
Yeah, well, and for some people it may have been, but you know, in 2006 we could go and see the families.
Yeah.
I don't think that happened in 2010, what I can remember rightly. So, yeah, you would have enjoyed 2006 more because of that. Getting out the hotel, going to see people. 2010, we were just in our own base and the training ground was over the road. I actually liked that. Not having to, you know, go and travel to a training ground or what, but it would be nice to see the families. My criticism has always been about tournaments is not being able to embrace where you are, the country, and go out and see things, and that would have been more possible, I think, in South Africa. It's a different type of country than you know, a European country. Going to Germany, I understand, would have been difficult with supporters everywhere, and it was a city, same as what we live in England. So South Africa, I think, was an opportunity missed, I felt, to actually go out and embrace the country and almost get an experience of where you were playing. So that would be the only criticism of the 2 World Cups.
And what about how England did in those tournaments? How does that still, do you carry that still, or how do you feel they did? I mean, obviously...
We didn't do well in either tournament. We did really poorly in 2010. And again, the draw killed us in that we didn't finish top of our group. We finished second, meant we played Germany very early and got a spanking and went home. So it was a nightmare tournament, really, all round. But it shows how important the group stage is in finishing top or second. In 2006, we got further. We lost on a penalty shootout.
Yes.
So we could have been, got to a semi-final. I think if you get to a semi-final, it's almost hero worship in England, understandably so.
Yes.
Because
as we saw in 2018.
Yeah, because we've never notoriously done that well in tournaments, but the performances were so average. There was no sort of excitement or build-up.
Well, the best performance was the final one, wasn't it? In the Portugal game.
Yeah, and a lot of that was because we hung on and showed real fighting spirit, against a good Portugal team. But there was nothing to really hang your hat on or get excited about that. Maybe we had in 2004 because of the Rooney factor, and there was great games with goals and great performances. But I think the 2 World Cups felt very flat.
And so how did Eriksson compare to Capello? Please tell me. Obviously, I've dealt with both managers.
Not too different, really. Not from my point of view in terms of getting too much out of them. I didn't have very deep, long conversations.
In terms of the regime, in terms of the...
Yeah, I mean, Capello was a lot stricter. Eriksson was a less strict, if you like. But if you're asking me who's the better manager, I'd say Fabio Capello.
Right.
Just maybe because he'd already done it at AC Milan.
Yeah.
He was a real huge figure. And that's one of the big reasons why I went back to play for England. It wasn't just playing for England in a World Cup. It was to experience getting managed by, for me, the best manager of his generation. If you think of those early 90s, what he did at AC Milan, Roma, then going to Juventus. So yeah, I was always pulling for Capello.
Cool.